Okay, so here we're in the fall of 1862 in For the People. By the way, that's a terrible choice of a name. Given the game, yes, I know. It's a play on We the People, but that was a mistake, I think. Anyway, I'll go into that in the review. The Union is building up a force under Buell again in Vincennes, and he's planning on driving the Army of Mississippi out of Union territory, we hope. We also see a little bit changing, forces. The Army of Cumberland has grown in size significantly. It's up to a 7 again. Doesn't really need to be that big, but in case it starts to face anything of any significant size, it probably should be, and it may need to leave garrisons behind. Didn't really increase the Army of the Potomac much, I don't think. That's still at about a 7. It's actually smaller than the Army of Northern Virginia at this point. It's in supply and could have been reinforced. I'm not quite sure why it wasn't. Burnside, however, was reinforced. Having a lot of decent-sized forces is kind of a bad idea because of the attrition effects, or whatever that's worth. The Confederates tried to increase what they've got. I mean, the Army of Northern Virginia is much larger. The Army of Mississippi, not too big, and the Army of Tennessee is tiny, but it doesn't really have a job in front of it unless Buell decides to cut down towards them and make an attack that way. Kentucky looks pretty secure right now, at least until this problem is resolved. Alright, we'll get into this. And in the early part of the turn, we're seeing, excuse me, the Union Army of the Missouri getting battered around. It charged around, made a mistake, played a campaign to begin with, landed the Cumberland here, took New Madrid. Still doesn't have control of the entire river. This is the one place. The wording's kind of silly. It states the Union has to control every port space. The reality is they just have to have naval control going through it. Their naval pressure has to operate throughout every space. This is the only space on the board where that's not the case. It's made clear elsewhere in the rules, but the one wording is poor. Otherwise, I thought I had to take all of these green port cities. Anyway, the Army of the Missouri had to move because I hadn't yet reformed the Army of the Tennessee after playing my campaign. I wanted to move quickly because I wanted to take New Madrid before troops got there and it became hard. And I wanted to hit the Army of Mississippi before it got a chance to go do further damage. Although I'm not sure that that damage is that important. So each of the states' capitals has one of these little markers, and they say destroyed on the back, and they sound kind of like the resource destroyed markers for the Confederacy, but the rules don't support that. The rules say the Confederates have to currently control it, i.e. have it flagged, which to me means, and maybe this was from a prior version and they decided, okay, that's too severe for the Union for a raid against one of their capitals. Anyway, I'm playing it as the rules are written rather than as some counters might suppose. Okay, so the Army of the Missouri attacked the Army of Mississippi, got repulsed. It wasn't the army I was planning on attacking with. And then Van Dorn slips into St. Louis. Now the Army of the Missouri is able to intercept. They rolled a 1, which is what they needed, but they get defeated again and driven back. So now we have a couple more Missouri spaces looking like they're heading over to the Confederacy, and there's a fairly decent chance at this point that the Confederacy may actually end up taking Missouri. They have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, they lost New Madrid. So they have 4 spaces. They need 3 more, and then it becomes a Confederate state as well. Alright, what about on the other side? Well, that's about all we've seen actually happen. Alright, let's go back to the Union turn. Well, I'm sure as some of you may have noticed, this unit has no line of communication and couldn't have gotten there. It couldn't cross the rivers, it couldn't cross this river or this river because there's no fort anywhere there. The Unions had control of the river there all along. Not sure what to do about it. I can try to build a fort. They should have never been able to slip across. I think we're in a situation where they've made it, and I'll cope with that. Probably going to try to reinforce with a strength point and then build a fort or something, but we'll see, because the Army of the Cumberland can slide up and hit them. Big mistake. Skews things quite a bit. Certainly we wouldn't see the concentrations that we'd had. The rules go over this very carefully, saying, yeah, you're going to get confused here, and yeah, I did. I'm not sure what to do. I think I'll play it as it is, understanding the rules now, and play with the rules as they stand now. That's bad news for the Army of Mississippi, though. On the other hand, I've also failed completely with the Army of the Cumberland. Only Grant or Sherman should be allowed to do what it's been doing, which is sailing up and down the Mississippi. I'm going to call this now, and I'm going to set it up again and start all over again. I know that it's kind of disappointing to me, but I think I've learned a lot about the game, and we're going to call this a defective set of videos. I think I've learned a lot of from my mistakes here, in the sense that I think I'll be able to play the game correctly at this point. I hope. We'll see. I'll say one thing though. This is I can't say it's really the fault of the rules, but with these point-to-point CDG games, again and again I'm finding the special rules are killers. I don't remember this being so much the case in other games. I'm not sure what it is, whether it's my age, which may be the case, although the OCS seemed very easy to learn, but it wasn't that different a system. But in these cases, there's just so many little things. You know, if it was a hex line, this would be very clear. But there's a whole series of special rules, not special rules, but examples to cover this little section. Well, there shouldn't be. You know, it shouldn't be that complex, and it shouldn't be that hard to hit me. And obviously other people have had problems with it because it had to have that special explanation. But I think this is one of the problems with the point-to-point ways of representing terrain, is they just don't manage it as naturally as, say, areas would. Hexes have their own problems, there's no question, but I think you can see, hey, here's the river, I can't cross that. Much easier. Certainly in the Victory Games Civil War, it's very clear, can I cross a river or no? Wait, are there Union ships within 5 hex sides? That's it. You know, it's that simple. Or is there a fort there? You know, that could also stop things, I think, in it. But here, it's just, you know, this is a larger rule book than the Victory Games game. And it's certainly as complex a game, but I don't think it's terribly more complex. It's just that some of the mechanism choices may make it more difficult, or maybe the writing in the rule book is more difficult for me to access. It's got a great index on it, but you know, an index doesn't make up for things that aren't intuitive, and this is difficult to learn and see. Alright, we'll give this another shot, and I'll load this one up as part of a defective series of videos.